Hello, welcome to Culture Vultures. I'm Sandy Frye, your host. Our creative producer is Nancy Cole, and this is a program that investigates arts and culture all around Tampa Bay. And my guest today is Carla Hartley, who very recently took over from Anna Brennan to lead the Stageworks. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think that's great. I like to say that we could have almost predicted it because not long ago, not all that long ago anyway, she was, having grown up in Tampa, I take it, was one of the young women of promise that the Athena Society selected as having definite potential for future development. And indeed you did.
Why, thanks.
Right.
It was a couple of years ago.
When you were a young woman of promise,
yes,
was theater on your mind?
Yeah, I've never had a job, a full-time job outside of the theater.
Is that right?
Ever. So, you know, I had a couple of part-time things. I think I sold knives when I was 18.
A knife, really?
For Cutco.
Oh, I bought one of those.
Have you bought them?
Yes.
See? And then I worked at the newspaper for a little bit of time, but I've only ever worked in the theater, so I've been very blessed.
Yeah. And you went to USF?
No, actually, I went to Tampa Prep when I was in high school here, and then I went off to Boston University.
Ah.
So I have a BFA in theater studies from there.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
And you came back home.
I did.
Was that because you felt that theater needed some more adherence and really more expertise?
I don't know if that's what I did consciously. I felt like things were. It was very cold in the Northeast.
Oh,
I
yes,
felt that.
yes.
That was a definite feeling of mine.
Yeah.
I know while I'd been gone, the Tampa Players, who I'm sure you remember, closed, and the Playmakers was closing, and so it did feel like there was a little bit of a vacuum that needed to be filled. I don't know that I thought that consciously, but I'll go with that for now.
I think you're right. It occurred to me on more than one occasion because those two, as a matter of fact, were the two prime theater groups back in the day. And at the time, I was asked to write an article about each one of them and how they approached getting audiences and getting enough money for productions. And one of them cultivated a lot of people from the community with parties and making it a kind of a festival, kind of festivus kind of thing. And the other was, as the leader of that told me, if we don't do it well enough, then we don't deserve to live, which is and that and that was interesting because the first, and I'm not even going to identify them, the first lost a lot of its supporters when it did a play that was, well, maybe considered a little going over the line. And gradually their support just sort of petered away. And the second one went until the leader, who had really good taste and a lot of, and knew how to make background and for the various plays. And so he almost put up the props themselves and created the props and everything else. And until he decided he was going to try out for the Olympics, and then he did, and that was it.
Yeah.
Then that went away too.
Yeah, my first job was at the Tampa Players as an actor. I didn't really have a lot to do with the Playmakers in general, but I worked there as an actor, and then I went off to college. And while I was gone, they lost the Lafayette Arcade space and had to build the new Harbor Island space. And it was just never quite the same again.
Yeah, right.
But so I was happy to come back. I came back in 1993 and immediately started working with the Loft Theater, which is not there anymore either.
It isn't. I know.
It's sad, right? And then moved to what was then the Tampa Bay Performing Arts Center and worked there for a number of years too.
Right. Well, and the woman who was at the Loft at that time, Wendy.
Wendy, yeah.
Yes, and I think she's just retired.
She did just a couple of months ago. I think left the Patel.
Right.
So.
Right.
She's got kids now going to college, and
I know.
I remember when they were born.
Well,
So,
she wrote a book, I think, about a baby who always cried a lot.
well, you know, she had these tapes of white noise back when white noise was first becoming a thing.
Right.
So she had a little side business there for a while. It was kind of fun.
Well, it was very creative. I really thought that was a wonderful thing to do, and I thought to myself at the time, I bet you could make a play out of this. You know?
Oh yeah, that would be good. That would be.
It would be funny. But at any rate, when did you join Anna?
I started working for Stageworks, and of course, Stageworks was part of that whole mix with the players and the Tampa playmakers and the Tampa players. But I started working as an artist with her, as a designer or a director, sometimes as a stage manager. Maybe 12 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, so a while.
Yeah.
And I continued to work with her because she always did really outstanding work.
Yes, she did.
And it was always a pleasure to be involved with a theater that had such an interest in community.
You bet.
And in really being a voice for underserved
people,
sections of the communities.
And I'd like to talk to you about that too, as a matter of fact. Having attended one in which some foster children were relating their lives. And I realized, too, that a couple of them really didn't want to read their lives to an audience, so someone else took it. And it was very moving because you go from a sort of a home where everything is okay to a place where there is no home. And there probably aren't any parents, or if there is a parent, you're afraid of them. And all of that was there. And I think, I'm not sure of this, but I think in some ways it was kind of therapeutic for them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a long-standing tradition in the culture of storytelling.
Yes.
And I think and many people subscribe to the notions that until we speak it out loud, we don't truly own it. And we can't, you know, it's just if you suppress those things, then you can't ever really deal with them, I think. So that's part of what we do. One of the programs that we do is to go into communities, whether it's foster kids or young men or women who are in the juvenile justice system, and encourage them to write their stories. And they don't have to perform them. We hire some ringers to come in. If we prefer that they do perform them themselves, but some people simply aren't equipped to do that.
Sure.
And so we bring in professional actors sometimes to take over the stories. And it's really quite fascinating. We'll choose a theme of some sort. I think the one that you saw, that theme was home. And what does that mean, and how does that feel, and what does that look like for the various people who are in the program. And they wrote on that.
Yes, and no home was like another.
Yeah, exactly.
No home was like another. One young man was sitting watching television with his brothers, and suddenly there was this incredible pounding at the door.
Yep.
He opened the door, and like a cadre of policemen just stormed through saying, "Where are your parents?" He said, "Well, I think they're in the kitchen."
Yeah,
and
that was really interesting. That was three brothers.
Yes.
Who were all in the program, and they were all there and had that experience, but to hear it from each of their perspectives was really different.
Right.
Because one, I think, was 13, 14, one was 10, and one was small, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So to hear the differences in perspective of that same event, it's really, really kind of fun.
It was. And what was also surprising to me is that the children are just shipped up and taken away as well. So they have to notify, who would they notify, what service in the county would
well, at the time it was
children.
Hillsborough Kids, and I don't know. I think they've recently been taken over by the Eckerd Family Foundation. So I'm not sure what that iteration of that now is. But a friend of mine worked for Hillsborough Kids at the time, and we devised this program and went into the foster system to work with those young people. In association with Connected by 25, which is a really great organization that you should totally have on your show, that deals with those the kids who are aging out of the foster system. Because once they are 18, they sort of get the boot a little bit. And but there's Connected by 25 is a program that takes those kids as they're aging out of that foster system and gives them, and we're working with Connected by 25 too, along with the Bank of America, to help them devise some career opportunities, career building, how to do a resume, how to do an interview. So that's another part of the educational facilities that we do with Stageworks. So we try to help communities who need it rather than communities who can afford it, if that makes sense.
Right. It does make sense. It really does, and I think that has been a lack in many of the programs before this was initiated. And again, that's Anna.
Absolutely, absolutely. She's had a long-standing commitment to cultural education, right? You know, whether it was us, because when I was young, young, not that young, but
we're all young.
I was stage managing the Inner Circle, which is a play about HIV and AIDS. That was, and this was in the late 90s, right? When people weren't necessarily talking about it too much, certainly not in the school system.
Absolutely.
So we've always, Stageworks has always dealt with issue-based work, with community engagement, and wanting to make work that not only entertained you but made you think as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Angels in America, I think, was first done by Anna.
Yeah. Well, first in the, I think it was a Florida premiere, I want to say.
It may have been. Yeah. I don't know what's going on in Miami, but but it,
and that was at the Schimberg Playhouse.
It was wonderful.
I did the lighting design for that, so it's a long-standing. She was the first to really deal with the AIDS epidemic by doing The Normal Heart by Larry Kramer, which was just done a couple of maybe last year.
It was
at Free Fall. So it's always been a long-standing commitment of Stageworks to do work that is meaningful and will touch people.
And those two, The Normal Heart, I remember that Nancy Cole, our creative producer, was on sabbatical that year, and of course, being a drama person, she went immediately to New York to see all the things that were there, and The Normal Heart was one of them. So it would have been the first time that it was presented in America, I would guess. And she came back and said it took a cross-cut at society. And I thought about that because it was such an interesting thing to say, and it had to be done quickly and so it counted.
Right.
And I think that one was the play that launched 1,000 others.
Absolutely. The Normal Heart is a seminal work.
Well, as Anna's successor, how do you approach a season? And talk about your season right now.
We approach it because we want to make sure that there's something for everyone. We want to make sure that we are not sort of sitting on any laurels. We want to make sure that we're pushing envelopes and making sure that people who come to see the work are, as I say, not only entertained, but are given something to really chew on, to really think about. So the first show of the season is a play called Superior Donuts by Tracy Letts. It takes place in a donut shop, and it tells the story of an unlikely friendship between a young African-American man and an older Polish immigrant. So it's very exciting. Tracy Letts wrote August Osage County, which was a big hit from American Stage a couple of years ago, and the movie. And he's a very, very talented Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. And so that's October. And then after that is a play called Handle with Care, by Jason Odell Williams, which is, I promise you, the first Jewish Christmas play I have ever read in my entire life. It's actually told, one of the characters speaks almost exclusively Hebrew. So
do you have overlap?
No, but that's part of what the play is about, right? Is how do we speak and understand one another?
Okay.
And we've hired a very talented actress, Georgina McKee to come down and do that. She was in Venus and Fur last year, and she's a good friend of mine, a very talented young woman. So she's coming down to do that. It's exciting. It's a very interesting play about how we sort of culturally deal with one another. And I think certainly given what's going on in the Middle East now, any play that we can do about extending communication and forwarding good thought is helpful. After that is Birds of a Feather, which talks about how we make a family. There's a relatively famous story about the two penguins, male penguins in Central Park Zoo that adopted a little hawk chick, a little baby hawk chick.
Is this true?
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark Aceto, who writes for NPR, he wrote the play based on the true story, and it talks about how we make a family and what does that look like, and how many different iterations of that that we might find in society. After that, we have Neil Simon's The Last of the Red Hot Lovers, which Neil Simon has been a long-standing playwright that we do a lot. His work, obviously, he's one of the foremost American playwrights, and his work is very popular. I'll say that right out the bat.
Right.
So we're doing a piece of his called The Last of the Red Hot Lovers. It's going to be directed by Georgia Mallory Guy, who is a very, very talented actress and director in town. And after that, we have Ain't Misbehavin', the Fats Waller musical, directed by Erica Sutherland. And last but not least, we have the play that I'm probably not allowed to say on the air. They'll bleep me.
They'll bleep you.
All right. It's called The Mother with a Hat. And it tells the story of a man who's getting out of prison, and he comes home and he finds a strange man's hat in he and his girlfriend's apartment. So the story of the play talks about how do we find out who's the owner of the hat and what happened in that apartment while he was gone. So it's very, very funny. It's very clever. But it also deals with, it's issue-based, so it deals with matters of addiction and 12 steps. And so it's a very exciting season. I think that there's a lot for people who know our work and love our work to buy into. And there's a lot for new folks to experience and come in and see. So we're hopeful that we'll retain the audiences that we have by doing the quality work that we've always done. And add more audiences to that by doing work that perhaps people wouldn't see on other stages here. So,
well, let me ask you this: now that you have a stage and all of its accoutrements, are you offering any kind of acting lessons or playwriting or?
Well, is
that in mind?
Well, we have a playwriting group that we've worked with for many, many years called Stageworks, and they meet twice a month, I want to say, and they bring the work that they've built and read it amongst each others and with the other playwrights, and then occasionally we'll have a public reading of that. So we do have a playwriting program that we've had for quite some time. But yes, now we're going to start. We did a batucada Brazilian drumming workshop over the summer, which was really, really fun.
What does that sound like, by the way?
What does it sound like?
Can you sing it for me?
No, I can't do that. But if you think of Carnival and the sort of the drumming that exists around that event, it's that kind of thing. And then we're offering in the fall acting classes and some Shakespeare classes. We just did a very successful workshop with the Blake High School students with a masterful actor in town, Shakespearean actor named Giles Davies. So yeah, we're building that. I think we want to do. I've learned over the course of this last year that too many actors in this town don't know basic dance. Like even if you're not a musical theater actor, you might occasionally be called upon to do a waltz or to do some sort of basic dance step, a time step even. So I think we're trying to put together a little dance class for actors that will give them just some basic skills that will be helpful to them throughout their career. So yeah, we are slowly but surely, now that we have a space and now that we have access to consistent rehearsal rooms and all of that stuff, that we'll be able to offer a slew of educational opportunities for both adults and for young people.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's really important, I think, because
Mm-hmm.
educating an audience is
Educating an audience and educating
very
children and making sure that they are seeing things that are that are challenging and thought-provoking and not just fluffy.
right. And I think that's absolutely necessary. And let me think about the number of groups between St. Petersburg and Tampa. We have a goodly, nice number of groups who are willing to explore. I think
Yeah,
American
I think so
Stage,
too.
Free Fall.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, 620. Well, they're
Studio
sort of
620.
on again, off again kind of thing. But
Oh well, Bob
when they do
Bob
it,
does great work. He gets
no,
the
I
Duke
meant
grant. And
right. Exactly. When they get the funding, they do
Absolutely.
some wonderful stuff.
You know, Bob Devin-Jones is, I love him. He's a dear, dear man, and he is one of a couple of people in town that you can go to and say, I would like to do this, and he'll go, yes. The answer is always yes with Bob Devin-Jones, and I love that about him.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah. Yes,
But no, I think you're right. So you've seen the sort of how things ebb and flow.
Yes.
And as we were talking a couple of minutes ago about how things really sort of fell apart a little bit with the closing of the Tampa Players and the Playmakers.
That's right.
While Anna was still there, sort of really holding down the fort. You look now at at American Stage and at Free Fall and at Studio 620 and at the Job Site Theater and Stageworks, what they're doing, the work that's being produced occasionally at the Straz, the Hat Trick. There are a lot of really interesting theaters opening and doing great work. So it's an exciting time to be an artist here in Tampa.
I think so too.
It's an exciting time to be an arts administrator.
Yes,
Here in Tampa.
and there are new ones. You were a member of a round circle.
Yes.
And tell us just a teeny bit about that. And
Well, in my defense, I had 104-degree fever. So I really have very little recollection of what I said at that round table. But it was great. We had Seth, who was on your show, Margaret, who runs the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, Zora at the Photographic Museum, Meg Heimstead, who's the interim artistic director at American Stage now, Rory Lawrence, who's producing the Tampa Bay Theater Festival. A lot of people who are either newly minted administrators or interim arts administrators here. So it was great to sort of sit around a table and talk about the state of the arts in Tampa and to meet people that I didn't really know. Like, I don't have a lot of affiliation with the visual arts people.
sure.
Even the film people, I don't really have a lot of interaction with. So it was great to meet those people and think, and it gave me an opportunity to think, okay, what partnerships could be interesting here.
Exactly.
To think of that in a new and different way.
Right.
So.
And the thing we haven't mentioned is that, thanks be to whoever, there are more young people here now.
Right.
I mean, if it were the same old us, or me anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. This wouldn't be happening, but they're back. And they came back. Or maybe they thought, well, we'll give this a try. And when they're here, they would like some entertainment and something good. And I think that it's sort of upping the ante for everybody.
Yeah, and when I look at the Channelside district in
yes.
particular, where Stageworks now has its home, it's very exciting. I mean, even when we opened 2 years ago, there was not nearly as much booming down there as there is now.
Right.
And it's only going to get better and bigger. And
I remember somebody had a huge contraption. I think it was a dragon or something.
Oh,
on a side street
steel
somewhere.
guys.
Is it still there?
12th. Yeah, no, it's still
It's
there.
still there.
Absolutely. It's weird. In fact, I think they used the space that was the Warehouse Theater, if you remember the Warehouse Theater.
Oh, yes,
back
I
in the day.
do. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but it was good.
It was good. Rosemary Orlando. I love her.
Yes, she's very good. Well, that's an interesting combination then. People who have stayed and have really set the standard for it. Certainly Anna did. And by not only good choices in plays, but also the commitment to the community. I think that is just remarkable.
And I think it's really what makes Stageworks stand out from the other theater companies around town. I mean, while many of them have educational programs, and I bless that, and I think that they're doing great stuff. But for so many years, Anna Brennan really made an incredible commitment and foray into working with communities who couldn't afford arts education.
Right.
You know, working to get grant money to make sure that these things were paid for, so that the children who couldn't pay for it had an opportunity to have arts education either in their schools or in community centers, or sadly perhaps in the juvenile justice system itself. But
that's not a bad idea.
No, and it's great, and it's something that we've been doing for
Sure.
many years. So, and it's helpful to help these young men and women think about situational strategies in a different way.
Right, and discover something about themselves too.
Absolutely.
Very possibly.
And the hope is that when they are released, there will be less recidivism, because they'll be able to handle themselves and their situations on the street maybe differently. So that's it's a program that we do, that we've been doing for a long time, and we hope to continue to do in the future. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you by any chance have any plans for maybe an event in summer?
An event in the summer?
Yeah, just, you know.
Well, every summer we do, it's called Tampa Works,
Right.
Which is local playwrights,
Right.
producing the work of local playwrights. So that will be June of next year. We're also going to be producing some new plays, some new musicals, or at least doing stage reading workshop stuff of new musicals, so that's exciting for us. What's happening next
Certainly
summer?
is filling time then.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh, we have
No vacation.
No vacations for me. But
Where do you keep your props? Do you have enough room?
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. If anyone has a warehouse that they would like to let us use for free,
We'll give a
that'd be
shout out.
excellent. Shout
Maybe
out.
extra space.
Extra space, warehouse space. Doesn't
Right.
have to be air conditioned. No, but we are. You know, it's funny. You build a building and you think that you've given yourself adequate space and
Right.
adequate storage area, and before you know it,
You're up
it's,
here.
yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna get a dumpster next week and just
Do
throw a
it.
bunch of stuff out.
Well, thank you for being with us. It's been great fun and really interesting. I appreciate your coming, and thank you so much, and thank you so much out there. Plan to join us again.